please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Abby, may you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Mark Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Councilmember John Petrowski.
Here.
Councilmember Wanda Schwer.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Mayor Leslie Ford Notaro.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
Finance Officer Melanie Cruzona. Here. And City Attorney Paul Moreno.
Here.
First item is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I would like to discuss something on the agenda, which is item 18. We're back to voting on the Board of Adjustments. And as I recall, we had a long discussion with Mike and Carol about them vacating their position.
Can we do that when we get to that?
Sure. Is that,
To that, yeah, I just
just because we've got people to vote on, and I don't think we can talk about that now, or we can vote on it, so.
When it comes up on the agenda, I think is the appropriate way. Any other comments on the agenda? Motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's approved. Item number 2, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Sir?
Sergeant Paul Langlis when I was in the sheriff's office. I was there with me, so my first meeting, so I'm sure we can expect any question for that one. Do you have a report from the strategic planning? I'm assuming I'll put a copy of it.
Yes. Yeah, I got it.
This is for July of 2018.
Did we notice any decrease in traffic violations along Gulf Boulevard from having the decoy car out there?
I don't have that information.
Just
I
curious.
just started supervising Bel Air Beach in July. I did notice the decoy car was something kind of new since the last time I was down here, so I don't have the data on whether or not there's been a decrease on it. I'm sure we can get that in August,
Okay,
and that's more current.
just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, any comments, questions? Yes, sir.
Sergeant, thanks for your service. For the benefit of the residents who don't have your report, could you just hit the highlights?
Okay, so looking at July 2018, for the Part 1 crimes, which is obviously the big ones that are captured statistically, obviously murder, forcible sex offenses, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle, theft of motor vehicle. There is a comparison from July 2017 to July 2018. There was a decrease in burglaries. In that month, there were 6 of last year, July, and then last month this year was 1. So there was definitely a decrease there. Last July 2017, there were 8 reported larcenies, and last month in July, there was 0. So there has been some reduction in those crime categories. The second sheet that we're looking at talks about the arrest type and descriptions. So for felonies, we had a violation of probation community control for an adult. We had 2 violations on that. 1 misdemeanor for refusal to submit to an intox test pursuant to a DUI. 1 felony habitual traffic offender. 6 driver license suspended or revoked. 4 DUIs. And 1 no valid driver's license. For the month of July 2018, there's another category on the 3rd page which goes from house checks all the way down to drug calls not in progress. There's about 20 categories. They did about 288 house checks in the city of Bel Air Beach, 150 traffic stops, 131 directed patrols. They handled 53 parking violations or abandoned vehicles. Special details, 13 of those, 13 suspicious people, 13 citizens, 12 suspicious vehicles, 7 community contacts, 7 alarms, some supplemental reports, 6 ordinance violations, 6 traffic suspended, driving suspended license. One notable will be 5 animal calls, a handle 4 accidents, 4 noise complaints, a handful of area checks, 3 DUIs.
I do have one question. My understanding of the directed patrols is that our assigned deputy is directed to spend a certain amount of time in a specific area. And during that time, there may or may not be anything going on, but that means that they are there and not elsewhere in our neighborhood. Is that the way that works?
Correct. So when there's a direct patrol for a certain street where somebody has noted a problem, it will be on our intranet where they check every day to see where their direct patrols are. So when they put themselves out on that and log into it, that's where they are. So they stay there for the duration, and then they clear the call, and they also log it into our sheriff's office net.
Has there been any notable effect on that absence during the directed patrol on activity, on being able to respond to other calls in the city or?
No, there's never been an issue. No, there's never been an issue as far as response time. We do have, in the rare event that, let's say, the Bel Air Beach deputy is on the north end of the city doing direct patrol, and something occurs over here right near Indian Rocks Beach, and Indian Rocks cars can come right over and handle it until Bel Air Beach deputy can get there. So there's never going to be like a discrepancy or take away from whatever needs to be handled.
Okay, thank you.
There's some crash citation analysis on the last page. They noted that on the actual causeway there was 1 crash, it was 4 total. 1 on the causeway, Gulf and 13th Street, Gulf and 16th Street, Gulf and Causeway Boulevard. Most of those occurred between 8 in the morning and 4 o'clock p.m. And 25% have occurred afterwards. The remainder. Top 10 traffic locations where they issued citations for Gulf and Causeway Boulevard. There was 4 there. 2 at 14th Street and Gulf Boulevard, 2 at Gulf and 5th, 2 at Bel Air Beach Causeway and Cedar Drive, right up here. Gulf and 24th Street, there were 2, and 1 for Gulf Boulevard and 2nd, 1st and Gulf, 12th and 23rd, and 13th and Gulf. All those had 1.
You happen to know what days they would be, because we got the increase in traffic on the weekends. I didn't know more of those accidents are because of the
Right, so,
traffic or not.
yes, sir. So on here they have it 1 on Sunday, 1 on Thursday, and 2 occurred on Saturday. So I can get
3 out of 4 on the weekends.
correct.
I have one last question. This data is looking back at July. Is there anything noteworthy in August? I heard news a car was stolen in the area.
Well, there was one in July in reference to burglary on the address. On 620th Street, there was an incident on July 6th where an individual was attempting to steal a car out of a driveway, or inside of a garage, say. Homeowner awoke to a noise, and there was an individual in the garage, and somehow got into it, presumably from the side door. There was some issue with the door not going up all the way for the vehicle to go out, so he ended up abandoning his efforts. Canine tracked, most likely got into a vehicle in the area, so there's no foot traffic for the dog to track. They did capture some DNA on that case, as I read. However, there were some complications with the DNA that was collected. There's no eyewitnesses on that case. He was wearing a hoodie cinched close to his face, so they have some evidentiary issues with that as far as identifying the suspect. There was also another issue going on, 3100 Gulf Boulevard, some cautions. You were talking to me about it just before the meeting started. I have a little bit of an issue with someone going after her car. I'm not really sure, I guess it is Lexus that they really want. The problem is that a lot of folks are leaving their cars unlocked with key fobs in them, and it's very, very, very convenient for them to just get in, unlock the car, touch the button, and it goes, and they just take off and use it until they're done with it. So I'm not sure if that's the case with her vehicle, whether targeting her vehicle on the 11th and the 14th, but we have deputies in the midnight shift very aware of that situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. It's been very good. Very interesting seeing these reports. Item number 3 on the agenda, citizens' comments. Each speaker will be recognized once and will be limited to a 3-minute presentation on any subject that is not on the agenda. And our clerk will be timing the 3 minutes. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Seeing no one, citizens' comments are closed. Okay, the consent agenda. Anybody want to read through?
Approval of the July 30th, 2018 City Council Budget Workshop Minutes, the July 30, 2018 Special City Council Meeting Minutes, the August 6th, 2018 City Council Meeting Minutes, August 20th, 2018 Special City Council Meeting, August 20th City Council Work Session Minutes. That's item 4. Request authorization to award the bid for the Belle Isle Avenue seawall renovation. Just to give you a quick highlight, the second bidding came in $30,000 lower than the first round, so we saved us some money there, so that's a good thing. Consideration of the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council Memorandum of Understanding creating Tampa Bay Regional Resiliency Coalition. Authorization to enter into an agreement with Spectrum for undergrounding the cable cross wires along Gulf Boulevard from First to Causeway. That's part of the undergrounding along Gulf Boulevard. And those are the 4 consent items.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any, we don't do discussion on a consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent agenda approved. Item number 8, consideration of ordinance 1805. Paul?
Yes, ma'am. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, granting to the City of Clearwater, Florida, a franchise for the purpose of furnishing natural gas services within the corporate limits of the City of Bel Air Beach. Providing for purpose, providing for definitions, providing for terms and grant, providing for rates, providing for extension of services, providing for force majeure, providing for non-compete, providing for termination, providing for franchise fees, providing for favored nations provision, providing for service standards, providing for cost, ownership, repair, relocation, providing for indemnification, providing for insurance, providing for compliance with ordinances or other ordinances, providing for availability of records, providing for assignment grant, providing for conflict, providing for alternative remedies, providing for acceptance, providing for resolution by grantee, providing for the governing law, providing for notices, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Do I have a motion for ordinance 18-05?
Second.
Discussion? Patty? Any public comments? Seeing none. Patty?
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Aye. Ordinance 1805 passes 6-0. Number 9, consideration of resolution 2018-18.
Yes, ma'am, a resolution of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida relating to the acquisition, construction, and funding of capital improvement associated with undergrounding of electrical cable and communications utility, and the installation of street lighting improvements on or adjacent to Bellevue Estate Island, imposing a supplemental non-ad valorem special assessment on the real property, comprising the Bellevue Estate Island assessment area, confirming the method of apportioning the supplemental assessment among the real property that will be specifically benefited by the undergrounding and street lighting project, establishing other terms and conditions of the supplemental assessment, approving supplemental assessment role, approving methods of collection, ratifying and confirming resolution 2018-16, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I have a motion for resolution 2018-18.
Motion approved.
Second?
Second.
Yes, we have Attorney Chris Rowe here to make a presentation, and then I will follow with just some highlights.
Thank you. I'm Chris Rowe of the law firm Bryant Miller Olive, and the council has for consideration this evening the final assessment resolution for the supplemental assessments related to the Bellevue Estates Island undergrounding project. The City Code of Ordinances sets forth the procedure for imposing special assessments, and that procedure involves a public hearing to be conducted tonight, followed by adoption of the final assessment resolution, basically finalizing the amount of the assessment and directing that the assessment shall be collected on the forthcoming tax bill. For brief background, some context, the city received petitions from property owners in the Bellevue Estates Island area in January seeking creation of an assessment project whereby the utilities that are currently overhead would be placed underground and street lighting improvements would be installed in that area, and the project would be funded in its entirety through special assessments imposed on the properties comprising the area. In light of the strong support demonstrated by those petitions, the City Council undertook the process set forth in the ordinance that just overviewed and adopted the assessments in March of this year. The resolution adopted in March approved the dollar amounts which were based on preliminary cost estimates for the project and set forth some of the terms related to the assessments, payable, and annual installments over 20 years. That resolution also directed validation of the assessment projects. Validation is a specialized procedure available to cities and counties in Florida whereby a city can seek judicial confirmation of its authority to undertake a particular project and pay for it a certain way. The city undertook that validation proceeding. It was held in late May before the circuit court here in the county, and the circuit court issued an order, a final judgment, that confirmed a number of things. The city's ability to undertake the project to begin with, the city's ability to finance it over a 20-year period by borrowing money up front and then repaying that money through the special assessment proceeds, and then also the validation upheld the city's assessment structure, the way the assessments were apportioned among affected property owners. Based on the judicial approval, the city then undertook a number of other steps. One is it began receipt of assessment prepayments. The assessments were subject to early payment or prepayment at the option of affected property owners, so the city made that known. Assessment prepayments began to come in. City staff also worked with the financial advisor engaged for the project to obtain a bank loan. The bank loan, again, is the financing that allows the project to be paid for over time. The city was able to get a very favorable proposal from Center State Bank. Center State Bank offered the 20-year loan to be repaid again by the assessments over time at an interest rate of 3.65%, and that 20-year term, which is really important in order to make the dollar amount of the annual payment as low as possible. Sometimes it can be difficult to obtain a loan that is secured solely by special assessments for that length of time. Banks often like to keep it to 10 or maybe 15 years. It was very good that we were able to get a loan for the 20-year period. Toward the tail end, mid-July, tail end of July, the city staff received a binding cost estimate from the utility providers. The binding cost estimate is essentially the utility provider's cost estimate for what it will take in order to underground the utilities. That binding cost estimate was actually higher than had been expected based on the preliminary assessments that had been adopted back in March. So at that point, there were a couple issues to deal with. One is the bank loan proposal from Center State Bank was only for the original project estimate of $1.6 million. We had to talk to the bank officials and determine, first of all, whether or not they would be willing to finance the additional cost, which came to approximately another $640,000. The bank has agreed in principle to make that additional funding available for the project and has also agreed to extend the period of time during which the city has to close. I think we originally envisioned closing on the loan at some point in August, but in light of the new development of the cost overrun, they agreed to extend it through September. So basically, they've given us additional time to close upon the loan. The other issue, of course, is that the assessment is directly affected. The cost increase of $640,000 has to be shown in the assessment amount imposed against affected property owners. The original implementing documentation included an ability to increase the assessment by up to 15% without going back and providing additional mail notice to property owners. However, the $640,000 increase was in excess of that 15% threshold, necessitating a new notice and public hearing process. Fortunately, there was enough room to accomplish that process between the time we figured out that this was necessary and the September 15th deadline for certifying the roll to the tax collector. That process was initiated on August 6th, with Council's adoption of an initial assessment resolution for the supplemental assessments. It's basically a secondary assessment, not in lieu of, but on top of the assessment that was approved in March of this year in order to recoup the $640,000. That initial resolution directed the mailing and publication of notice to affected property owners and scheduled the hearing tonight so that the council may hear from affected property owners before it votes on whether to adopt the final assessment resolution and thereby oppose the additional $640,000 project cost. With that, I'm glad to take any questions council may have before opening up to public input.
I have one question. The validation still holds though, despite this second assessment?
The validation validates the city's authority to undertake the project, to finance it through a loan as contemplated with Center State Bank, and to impose assessments to pay for the project. It also validated the system of apportioning the assessments among the affected property owners. We did not anticipate at the time that additional assessment would be necessary. However, we did present to the court the information available to us at the time, which was that all of the notices that were sent to property owners indicated that the amounts were conservative, and we think they will be in that 15%. However, we will not go above that amount without additional notice and opportunity for public hearing. That was presented to the court, although this specific assessment was not.
Okay. Just, I want to give the council some feedback before the public portion of the hearing, just to let you know what we've got, and the public to know. The underground committee met last week. We went over the numbers. As of today, the numbers are still pretty fluid, but I'm confident they're good numbers, and there's some potential savings. As of today, we have received 17 emails in support, which I provided to the council the addresses of those 17. We received 3 emails that oppose it. The new assessment, if you pay it annually, if you have overhead utilities, it will now be $1,611.70. If you're undergrounded, it'll be $1,267.70. If you wanted to pay the 2 different assessments, the overhead assessment, which you have till September 12th to pay, is $21,096. The total for the underground is $16,596. We have 24 people that prepaid. Of those 24 people, as of today, one of them has paid the additional assessment already of $55.18. The other 23 property owners have until the 12th to pay the additional $5,518 if They don't want the assessment. If that is not paid, then we would put an assessment on those homes that initially paid of $418.70 annually. The assessment roll has been set up. We're at the point where next week we have to have it in by the 15th, so we have a very short time frame to get that to them. But we've got the current numbers replaced in there. If this is approved, we're just kind of ahead of the game to decide depending on what happens tonight. There is a request for qualifications for a new consultant. That is due on the 13th of September. And I anticipate that hopefully I do anticipate it. I'm confident that the consultant price is going to drop also. And as I mentioned at the undergrounding meeting, I think some of the cost to the overhead to underground homes, that price will drop some. The only decision that really is outstanding, and that's really up to the council, is talking about the street lighting, which that's a future situation. So at this point, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions also.
I have one question. On the financial analysis, the conduit installation energy, understanding that CPWG had way underestimated that. Of the other numbers there across the board, the cable wire only, cable complete, and then what is the difference that makes up the
The first three columns on this spreadsheet, the initial was the original CPWG estimate plus the additional associated things that needed to be added, such as attorney's fees, the engineering consultant, things of that nature. The second column, where it says Duke and cable only, those numbers were attributed to Duke's binding estimate, which was $554,849, and that's if the city installed the conduit. The number below it, the 704, was an estimate. The 112,000 for Spectrum was what they would do if we put the conduit in. And then the third column over is if we just told Duke to do it, which would increase the cost significantly to like $2.5 million, which I don't think we're at that point. I went out to 2 undergrounding boring companies. I got estimates verbally from both of them, and the estimate for putting all the conduit in is around $800,000, and that's a conservative estimate. And when I say that, undergrounding means cable, everything, the utilities, all of that. After we secure the consultant, we would go out to bid for that service, and I expect that to even be lower, based on what I got in linear foot prices from the various companies.
So that 625 for conduit installation?
Is the estimate for Duke based on what I got from the vendors. And the conduit for cable, that's the estimate based on the number I got from the vendor. There is some permitting and survey work that's going to be required, but I think we've got the money set aside to take care of those things if we need to. The project does have a 10% contingency, but I've really got a goal of not using any of that and working it out the other way. So that would be a positive in the end, but for safety's sake, I think what we've selected to do is going forward. As Chris said, we have talked to the bank, and they've given us time, and what would probably happen is we close at the end of September, if it's approved.
So as city manager, you're comfortable with where we're at and you're ready to move forward on this project? Is that your recommendation?
Yes, I'm comfortable where we're at, and I do think there's still some cost savings in here. I think the undergrounding committee worked very hard at this. And I think, as I said at the undergrounding committee, I think we got to worry about the future and forget about the past. It's time. If the residents want this, then the residents need to speak to the issue.
Anyone else on council? I will open it up to members of the public. Anyone wishes to speak, come up and give us your name and address. Yes.
I'm Lawrence Fentress, 2227 Donato. And I've had a number of my neighbors tell me that the cost overrun seems to be material. And for the cost per home that we're talking about here, we could put in solar. I mean, it's a huge number. And I'm having trouble understanding why we could have missed the estimate so much. I'm not sure that people that voted for this originally would vote for it today with this kind of cost. And because it's a material difference, I think you said more than 15%, I would recommend that you put it back to the residents that are affected and let them revote on whether or not they want to have this special assessment. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience wish to? Yes, sir.
My name is Ron Sedan, 2219 Donato. Participated as an observer in the ad hoc. I appreciate all that the ad hoc committee did in working this through. Knowing that the ad hoc committee wasn't able to get a binding vote, we needed to assess the residents first based on an estimate. Part of the process was broken. However, I'm fully supportive of continuing with this, and I believe many of the people in the audience will enjoy with me. So we ask your approval tonight of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Phil Henderson, 2173 Louisa Drive, and I concur with the gentleman. We're in full support of it, and I think most of the people in this room are. So we urge you to move close space and get it done.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Bill Lusk, 3010 Hibiscus Drive West. I have a question that goes beyond those that are involved with the current project. Should council vote to move forward, is there something that is put in place that shortens the process, changes the process for residents that are in other areas of Bel Air Beach, good or bad? Is there a precedent being set on how a decision is made to put forth an assessment towards a property? Paul, can you maybe help me with a little bit of that?
I think there's a process being developed here that becomes the boilerplate for future projects.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I think Chris Rowe, Attorney Rowe, has pretty much explained the whole process that he's gone through from the beginning.
Okay, so let me...
He is a specialist in this area.
And Chris did a great job. So going forward for anything of the like, not just power underground, have we eliminated steps that would include resident votes to start a process of the like?
This project would have gone through very smoothly, but for the miscalculations by the initial engineers with regard to the potential cost. And because of that, and the cost came back substantially higher. There was an issue of backing up and redoing this to a certain point. This should not be the case in the future. In the future, I'm sure that Mr. Reeves will be getting engineers that know what they're talking about.
So are you just referencing power lines or any decisions that could go forward that would include some type of assessment on a property?
When you're doing special district or non-ad valorem assessment projects, they pretty much follow the same format as a rule. And then you go, whether it's street lighting, whether it's road lighting, or any curbs, or whatever you want to do that you want to
We'll always
do.
start with the residents vote first, correct?
You got to go to the residents, that's how you get it started.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I can address some of those issues. I think there will be efficiencies involved in this thing because part of the learning curve on this was figuring out how to do it, and we enacted the ordinance that allowed for the creation of special assessment areas. So that was a big step forward, and that's a major portion of the cookie cutter process that we can apply to other areas. We've incorporated some of the people from the other streets who are interested in this program, and they're already on the learning curve to figure out how to do this thing. So the petition will be a much cleaner process. The legal will be a much cleaner process. I think the engineering, all the lessons learned, I think are going to streamline this process. So.
I think also we need to note that part of the process is dictated by the property assessor's office. There's guidelines that you have to follow and steps you have to follow there in order to implement a special assessment district. So part of the guidelines come from them.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Robin Hockey, 2206 Donato. I'm for undergrounding, but my concern is that, like you said, didn't seem to be designed very well. Seems that we haven't got a second assessment that's now higher. My concern is if we go forward, what's to say in 2 more months you're going to say, guess what, you're going to owe another $6,000 because something came in. And my concern is since it was kind of unorganized, and maybe we need to go back to the drawing table and make sure we got all our ducks in a row before we go forward, because it is a big chunk of change. And that's my only concern, is that in the future, something else is going to come up and we're going to be halfway through and now stuck and have to go forward with this large amount of money. Thank you.
Yes.
Cindy Minton, 2226 Donato Drive. And I represent 3 other neighbors that couldn't be here tonight, and they all want to move forward on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any?
Good evening. Owen Ewing, 2165 Louisa. We're totally in favor of this project. Really appreciate the hard work by so many committee members and commissioners, and it's going to have a very positive impact on the community. And you see the other communities around that have taken this effort and steps. It's going to be, I think it's going to increase property values and really make Bel Air Beach a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lynn, is it appropriate to address the concern about the cost, the difference between the initial and what we have now, between it was just probable costs based on engineering first go around and binding costs by the...
Well, we have binding costs from Duke Energy, and we have binding costs from Files, which is a minimal cost really, and we have a binding cost from the cable provider Spectrum. I think now those numbers, having that bind, which before we didn't have that binding cost, we basically had an estimate that some consultants prepared, and I think it's very important, as it was in this project, that we go get those binding costs, and in the future, if there's another project, that we do it in a way that we go spend that couple $1,000s and get a binding cost. Well, it was $4,000, I think, but get the binding cost ahead of time, and then they're locked in for 6 months. And at the same time, maybe do the petition.
Isn't there a risk of getting the binding costs too soon because there's time limits associated with that?
Yeah, well, there's a risk, but if you really look at in the big picture, the thing that you have to realize, okay, we got the binding costs early, and let's say we had that 6 months ago, when they went out, or no, it's more like 8 months ago when we went out with the petition. If we'd have had those numbers, even if we would have had to go back to them, and I'm going to use a gentleman's verbiage, the cost creep wouldn't have been as high as it happened with this one, because we had no verbal, reliable discussion with the utilities that they gave us something back. So, in essence, if you really think about it, if you knew ahead of time that Duke's number was going to be 554 instead of 250, okay? If you'd had to spend that $4,000 again, look what you would have saved in hindsight.
Now, isn't the increase in Duke's estimate now on the binding cost because they're using a different method than the engineer was basing this on?
Well, it's a loop system, which is a better reliable system. It's been around for several years. I don't really know why the consultant was thinking of doing a radio system. I have no reason. I haven't spoke to them about that. But in speaking to Duke, when I went back to them, is that a possibility? They basically told me no. There's no possibility we do a loop system. So I think if there's another project in the future, I would go about it differently, but I kind of came in the middle of this project.
We know so much more now than we did a year ago.
I think all of us do.
I think the most annoying thing is that Duke gave us a non-binding contract at $350,000, and then came back 3 years later at $535,000. What didn't they do? They said consistently over these 3 years, and so did the engineering group, that they were going to be within 15% max. So, I don't know, did they have an engineering change at Duke Energy, or did they have different engineers do the job? Who knows?
No, I think how Duke develops their thing, and now that they used to be Progress Energy, and then they became Duke Energy, and now they've created this computerized system that basically outlines how they do things. And they gave us some credit. I think the original cost was like $680, and we got 100 and some thousand credit for the stuff that's there, because they're going to salvage it and reuse it somewhere else, or probably not reuse it, but scrap it. So, and it's all ran by tariff. So, and that's not done by someone locally, that's done with the Public Service Commission at the state, and they're the ones that approve those tariffs.
Well, it's strange that the engineering company didn't question it over the last 3 years or anything.
I can't speak to that.
Neither can I. Strange. Maybe Paul can write him a letter and try to get an answer.
So I guess, Lynn, when I hear you saying back to Robin's question, the concerns of the number being nailed down, it's nailed down, so you have a binding.
I have the only number that isn't 100% nailed down is the mooring, but I have a very conservative number that I got from 2 different companies, gave them the linear feet of conduit. And they're reputable companies. Pike is one of them, does a heck of a lot of work all over the United States. I am confident that those numbers are fine. I do think we'll have some savings, and I brought this up to the undergrounding committee, that, you know, maybe spending $1,000 or so with an electrician to go to the overhead houses and find out where we're at with them. And then we know what the cost is. Because basically the cost from the street to the house from Duke is running somewhere between $850 and $900 based on the people that have already put theirs underground. The additional cost is based on the meter can box and what they have in their panel. So my personal opinion is spending that money would be beneficial and could save us significantly more money for the overhead.
I agree with you, Lynn, but originally we thought there were a few homes out there that needed total rewiring.
Yeah.
So in anticipation is why we raised it up that high to cover the homes. And we did realize that some of them would come in under 1,000, and then some we didn't know were.
Right, and that's why I think that knowledge would be very helpful in the long term.
So back to my question, Lynn, do we have that cost nailed down? I know you're trying to save money, but with your assessment that we have projected, does it allow enough money for the conduit and all of the locked-in prices we have from Duke?
Yes.
So there's no opportunity for another increase in assessment?
I don't see that. I mean, I really don't, and I've discussed that with the underground committee. I've given them my opinion. I've done undergrounding projects in other places, and I think once you tie down that, and the due prices, and things of that nature, and in the future, if there's other streets that want to do this, I would suggest we go to the, I'm going to say, go to the horse first, and then we'll talk to the cattle coming behind, instead of going to the cattle and, just as a thing. I really do. I think we're fine here. I really believe there's even some other potential things above the, when I talk about those things, nothing below the attorney fees, the financial advisor, the loan closing costs, things of that nature. So there may be a few dollars difference there, but above the line, I think there's other things that we can really work on. And once we determine what we're going to do with the streetlights, that's another thing. So I'm confident with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. Jane Goldman, 437 22nd Street. I have three things to say. First, thank you to everybody for the hard work, the committees, everyone here continuing to show up and show their support. It's just fantastic. Secondly, I'm a process improvement expert. That's what I do for a living. It always takes the first one to learn what you did wrong, right? So we were the first one, our group, our streets were the first one. We knew it was going to be tough, but we also know from a process efficiency perspective, we were going to make mistakes. We all learned from those mistakes. I don't believe they're going to ever happen again. So those mistakes were very valuable to us. So failures is also a part of success. So I think we should put it to rest, like you said so aptly, Lynn. Let's get on with the next step. The thing that I'm worried about is the price increases if we don't do it now. So we're talking about modernizing our grid so that we're actually in this century, so that we can withstand disasters and actually have a better service. So if we don't do it now, their technology is going to continue to increase. We're going to continue to get cost increases because our version, our release, is so old that it's going to take all of this extra money to catch up. So I think if we don't do it now, we're making a grave mistake, and I think we're going to end up paying for it in a big way. And modernizing our grid, our infrastructure, and our community should be first and foremost for everybody on the council and in the room. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience, from the public? Any other? Oh, yes, Dr. Ward.
I appreciate, I'm Dr. Bill Ward, 2199 Louise Drive. I appreciate addressing this group because this should be the last group that we have to address as far as underground is concerned. I've been associated with this for a number of years now, 7 years to be exact, and even longer than that with Jim Cargan. Then one of the old councilmen has been with us for about 7 years working on this very hard. And even back 7 years ago, or 6 years ago, we went around on a Saturday morning and got signatures for 51% of the people who were at home at that time. And people want to modernize. They want to help the city. And I think this is a big step in that direction. I think other areas in the city will be pushing for this. And I hope that we can improve the city even more. Thank you.
Any other comments on council? We're ready for a vote. Ed?
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Aye. Resolution 2018-18 passes 6-0. Item 10, consideration of adopting the proposed ad valorem millage rate for FY 2018 to 19.
I'll make
At our last council workshop, we adopted a tentative millage rate of 2.0394, and the budget that we prepared is based on that same millage, so I'm really asking you all to adopt the final millage rate of 2.0394.
We have a motion for a millage rate of 2.0394 mils.
so moved.
Second.
Discussion in council? Anyone from the audience? No, Patty? Take a roll.
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. The proposed millage rate of 2.0394 mils, which is higher than the rolled back rate by 5.80%, is to fund the expenses of the general fund for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2018 and ending September 30th, 2019. The final approved millage rate for the city of Bel Air Beach will be presented at a second and final public hearing that will be held at the community center on Monday, September 17th, 2018 at 5:05 p.m. Okay. Item 11, consideration of approving the city of Bel Air Beach budget. Melanie?
All right, at the final budget workshop, Mr. Reeves changed some things. He took some things out of this current budget, which he was able to purchase in this fiscal year's, and that basically reduced your overall budget by $28,830. So we've got a final 2018-19 general fund budget of $2 million. Let me get the exact numbers. $2,656,752. We've got a marina fund budget of $67,035, and a capital projects fund budget of $2.8,055,357, which gives us a total citywide budget of $5,579,144.
Questions or comments from the public about the budget?
How much was the marine? At the marina?
Sorry.
The marina fund, it was $67,035, I believe.
Yes. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Close the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. What up?
I have one more question.
Sorry, Jane.
One of the things that,
Come up to the mic so if we get everybody can get you.
one of the things that I think would be
a little more money for IT. So that we could dial in, have a conference line, have some, little streaming services so that if we're not here and we want to participate, it'd be great if there were some funds. I don't think it would be that much money. So I didn't really totally see enough in the budget, but we can certainly talk about it since I know a little bit about it. So I would just say I would consider that before everything's passed and final.
Just an update, we did a citizen survey on the streaming, and the majority of the citizens that responded to that survey didn't have any, they didn't support streaming of the meeting. Actually, it was a small amount that even watched the meeting. And so that is that's been discussed previously.
But to Jane's point, we have these overhead projectors. We should at minimum have the budgets or the numbers that Melanie's going over for the audience to see, because they don't have that in the agenda packet that's handed to them. So that would be helpful to have that.
In the future, yeah. Okay, well, that's not a cost, really. We could work that out. Cost us an iPad or another, yeah, or a laptop, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve the budget document, including the operational budget, capital improvements program, capital projects fund, and the marina fund?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions on the council?
Just want to thank Melanie for all her hard work.
Yes. Patty?
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Otero.
Aye.
Mayor, I'd just like to say, I want to thank Melanie plus the staff, and I want to thank the city council for working with us this year and spending a lot more time than I think we've had to in the past. And I think it helped the staff and it helped the city council, I hope. And if any resident ever has a question about the budget is on the website, and if you have a question about it, you can contact myself or contact Melanie. But all the departments made a big part of this, but the council made it a big part too. So thank you.
How much per foot do you charge? Okay,
Well, I have to say this. The motion passed 6-0. The final approved budget for fiscal year 2018 through 2019 for the City of Bel Air Beach will be presented at a second and final public hearing that will be held at the Community Center on Monday, September 17th, 2018 at 5:05 p.m. Okay, we're on to the regular agenda. Number 12, consideration of nomination for the Forward Pinellas Beach Communities representative for a 2-year term. I think you've all gotten a copy on your, at your dais about the membership for the Forward Pinellas, Pinellas Planning Council and the Metropolitan Planning Organization. There is one representative who represents the beach communities, which is, and that representative is selected by the Big C. But each of the beach communities gets to come up with a name for someone, and that gets presented to the Big C. Our current representative is Mayor Cookie Kennedy from Indian Rocks Beach, and she is willing and would like to serve for another term. She's not termed out or anything. So I look for a nomination for the Forward Pinellas Beach Communities representative that we will present to the Big C.
I would like to nominate Mayor Cookie Kennedy for another term.
I second it.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Congratulations, Cookie.
Mayor, is it okay if I come forward?
Oh, I didn't see you there. I apologize. Apologize.
Hi, it's nice to see everyone, and those of you that I have not met before. But this is Whit Blanton, and he's our executive director. And we have a pamphlet for all of you, so I'd like for him to give it to you just so that you know a little bit about what we're doing and how we're moving forward in the future. I just want to give you briefly, Ford Pinellas is a duo agency. We do land use and we also do transportation. We do a number of we work on safety, we work with the FDOT, we have forums so that there's citizen participation and that individuals can come and talk to us. We've worked with your city in the past on safety issues. And if you have any questions for us while we're here today, in 2014, we have the Pinellas Planning Council and the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We merged both of the agencies to create Ford Pinellas as one. And I had the fortune of being a part of that group that merged the two together, and I can tell the audience that it was like doing underground utilities, let me tell you. It was really crazy. So anyway, we have moved forward, and we're very happy now that we're all together. There are 13 of us who serve as elected officials throughout the county. We have county commissioners on this agency, elected officials, and we also have a representative from the Pinellas Transit Association. So with that, I'd like to give you these, and I'll give these to you in case you would like to ask us questions, and Whit's here too. Do you have any questions for us?
My contact information is in there, so I encourage you if you have questions, if there are issues that you want to deal with, I'm happy to be here and talk to you as a council or individually, if that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your volunteering. Okay. Item 13, City Code Review Advisory Committee Report.
I'm happy to report that last night was our last regular meeting. We have reviewed each of the recommended chapters from the municipal code, and it was quite an ordeal. We went through every line, every section, every paragraph, every subparagraph, every subsection, and we did repeal some that we thought were redundant or were misleading or otherwise no longer in effect. We've made a lot of recommendations, and we've also asked for some rulings on certain areas that we had questions about. The next steps will be for the staff to compile the list of comments and questions and suggestions, and then we're going to have a city council workshop reviewing all of those. Coming out of that workshop will be the council's final recommendation on the changes to the code or the updates to the code. And then our legal counsel will put together ordinances for the city council to vote on. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Lynn? Jody?
Just, I would like to try to commit to a date to move this forward so that we're not a month from now still trying to figure out what we're going to
When do you think we can have the work session?
Well, I think I've got to get everything compiled first, and as soon as we get that together, we'll send a date out to the council.
So would it be fair to say like 2 weeks we could shoot for?
I wouldn't expect in 2 weeks. I would say within the next month. We'll get you something. Do you agree?
Before the October
Yeah,
council meeting?
That's right now. Paul and I did talk about this today. So the hope hope is to try to do something before the October.
To have a workshop before the October meeting, so that we can maybe have a couple of the ordinances ready to vote on in October?
We've got two already, they're done in draft form. It's the big one that we're going to be working on, Jack is going to be working on as soon as she meets with the city manager.
Yeah, as I mentioned to Wanda before the meeting, the most critical one that affects clearly several property owners, I think we need to work with 94 and get that resolved as it pertains to sheds and some other things. And try to get that at least drafted in an ordinance so that the council vote. The other areas, we would do all of them in a workshop, but as far as converting something to an ordinance, I think would be the priority. Mainly because there's some issues with some, I'll call it the contractors that have installed these sheds specifically illegally. And they're willing to fix them. So I think that behooves us to help the property owner out if there's no additional cost to them. And then we'll work forward on the other ordinances. But the work session will be overall. And we'll try to get that set up before the end of September.
I'd like to thank Jody for her participation on the committee, and to those residents who participated on the committee, showing up every 2 weeks for a 1 to 2 hour meeting, and preparing diligently and reviewing a lot of verbiage to be able to discuss and debate and come up with recommendations, and also to the residents who came as observers and made comments and suggestions and filled us in on their ideas for code updates. So thank you all very much. It was an enlightening experience and worthwhile. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Wanda for holding things under control. That was like herding cats, more or less. No, they did a great job. Okay, so we'll wait for the report, have a work session, and hopefully have something for the October. Probably not the whole thing, but to start.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Item 14, consideration of resolution 2018-17. Paul.
Yes, ma'am. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida concerning Amendment 1 to the Florida Constitution, which, if adopted, would create additional inequities in Florida's tax system by granting certain tax breaks to some taxpayers at the expense of others and other taxpayers, and establish an effective date.
We have a motion for resolution 2018-17.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay.
Do I understand that this resolution really is saying that the people should take a good hard look at this before they consider it?
Yes.
Because of its adverse impact on so much.
Yes. We, today at the Mayor's Council meeting, Mike Twitty came and gave a presentation, and it helps a few people, it hurts more. It was essentially the bottom line from it. So.
I have an issue with this even being on our agenda. We're talking about trying to affect the outcome of a vote. It's going to be in front of our voters in October, and we're giving an opinion on it, which, in my opinion, we should not.
No, I'm just reading what it says here.
I believe it was very clear that you said it would hurt some taxpayers while helping others. But that's deceiving because you don't really know who it's helping and who it's hurting.
I just read it.
I know, but I'm just saying, I don't know why we even have this on it. It's discussion and I'm discussing it. It shouldn't even be on the agenda.
Well, it doesn't hit thresholds of utilization of municipal or state resources to further a referendum. It's merely a resolution. And I think your point may be very well taken, but it's here. I just read it. That's all I do here.
Looked like you wanted to say something, Glenn.
Any discussion from the residents?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mark Oldham, 437 22nd Street. Yes, I do have some questions, but I don't understand it. And I like Jody, want to know what is the purpose of us even entertaining this or reading this consideration of a resolution? What are we resolving to do? Can anyone answer that question?
Reflect the outcome of a vote.
Other than that, what are we intending to do? What's our involvement as citizens of Bel Air Beach in listening to this resolution or considering the resolution as it states here? What are we considering? To vote for something or not to vote for something?
I think it's just to really understand what you're being asked to vote on when you get your ballot. At the surface level, it may not be as clear as some of the other amendments have been in the past, but I think it really behooves every voter to really understand the impact of what presents as a tax break, and to understand the impact of that tax decrease, the ripple effect through the city, through the county, and all of the agencies that are getting funding through ad valorem taxes.
Right, and I do respect and understand that, but is it the purpose of the city council to try to affect the way we vote about something that the state has put on a ballot? I'm not understanding, are we for or against this because it would be better for the city's tax revenue? Or are we to be opposed to this because it would be unfairly taxable to some folks and not the others? I just need a better explanation.
It does both, yes.
May I just, for Mr. Goldman's benefit, essentially the resolves are this. I don't know if you had a chance to see it, and I don't know where this came from, but here's the resolve. One resolve is the city of Bel Air Beach, Florida will evaluate the impact Amendment 1 may have on its property tax. That's a responsibility of council and staff. Understood. The second resolve is that the city of Bel Air Beach, Florida urges its citizens to carefully consider the potential adverse consequences of Amendment 1 before voting in the November 18 general election. I guess the word adverse is probably what's of concern. The third resolve is that a copy of this resolution be provided to the Florida League of Cities and other interested parties. So I guess this came from the league.
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay, it came from the Florida League of Cities. Okay, so as a board, are you saying to consider a resolution of voting against this in the general election?
No.
I need to understand that.
Well, when you see these whereas, it says this one-size-fits-all scheme. So yeah, they're pretty much saying that this what they presented to us as the board to vote on is saying that this is a bad vote, that we should not support Amendment 1, is what the League of Cities is trying to get across to citizens.
Okay.
And I do not agree with their
Well,
approach.
and I sort of agree. I don't really see that that's the position. I think we should, this needs to be certainly understood and sent to all residents who will be voting, because I still, even after our discussion here, I'm not sure whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who you ask. But for us to vote on a resolution, I don't know about that.
If you go on the property appraiser's website, Twitty's website,
Right.
there is a link on there that you can put in your address, and it tells you how this will affect
Would
you.
affect it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, anybody can do that. They have also, I don't remember the specific numbers, but he does have information as to the reduction in revenue to each of the cities, and our tax revenue would decrease if
Okay.
this goes through.
And that I can understand that.
Yeah.
So,
And that means that in order to keep the revenues, we have to shift it you get a break, and this guy gets to pay more. You know what I mean? So that's,
No,
that's the.
I will go on the
that's issue.
website and take that exercise and see what that means, but it seems like this is written to say that this resolution or this thing we're going to be voting on is not going to do the city any good from a tax point of view if it gets approved by the residents of the state of Florida. Because it changes the structures.
Yes.
But it benefits the residents' pocketbook.
Understood.
Except the taxes probably get shifted elsewhere in order to maintain the level of services and revenue.
You get a decrease, it's, the money's there somewhere, it's just shifting it from a small proportion of the residents are getting a cut. A much larger proportion of the residents would be getting an increase.
Okay, I understand that. Back to my just original statement is it the responsibility of the Bel Air Beach City Council to legislate for anything, one way or the other, even whether it's taxes or anything else, by virtue of a resolution? I don't know the law, but I'm just throwing it out there. Jody's raised a good point for me. So, thanks for listening.
Any other comments from the public? Council?
Yeah, could I add?
Yes.
Finance Director Melanie, she's crunched the numbers, and what's the bottom line impact to Bel Air Beach?
$29,000, assuming there's no increase.
It's about 30,000, right?
$29,000 reduction in our revenues,
Right.
revenues essentially, right?
Right, that's the estimate.
It's a reduction in the 2019 property tax year, assuming there's no increase in property values, which is unlikely. But again, the resolution, to me, sounds like it's saying people need to know what they're reading before you vote. It's not saying you need to vote this way or that way. It's saying, please be informed about what you're voting for, somewhat like when the fire department, Suncoast Fire Services, put their resolution through, and it was very misleading, and people voted one way because they didn't understand it fully, and then it ended up getting pulled. And I think that's why the league has put that through. So, to me, I don't see people saying you have to go this way, but if y'all are comfortable, then pull it.
But then just back to your statement, it's roughly a $30,000 loss of revenue, but with the increase in property values, it's a net zero.
To the city of Bel Air
It's in the city of Bel Air.
Yes, as you go down the food chain, it's smaller and smaller. The further up the food chain you go, it's a significant loss. Like when you go to the county, it's millions of dollars. So, that takes with them county services. And I think that's why the league is looking at that, because,
Well, we're kind of just talking about our city. I mean, we should only be concerned with what's going on in Bel Air Beach, so.
Right, but the amendment is statewide or county? Statewide. And so that's why they're asking, please be sure you understand, because you're impacting more than just yourself in your city. So you guys are considering it for you, but it's the resolution is considering the state.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Ready for a vote? Patty?
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
No.
Councilmember Petrowski, Councilmember Schwer, Councilmember Shirley,
No.
Mayor Notary.
Aye. Resolution 2018-17 passes 4-2. Item 15, authorization to award RFP 2018-01.
Yes, this is authorization to award the contract for the residential, single-family, and multifamily residential complex, solid waste collection and recycling. As you remember, we discussed this at the work session in our general business on the 20th of August. In the consensus from the council at that time, I provided you with the evaluations. I went through and spoke with each of the contractors, and at that point, the council recommended maintaining the current contract. So this is authorization to execute a contract for single and multi-family complex solid waste and collection services with Waste Management of Florida in the amount of $283,623. The current contract expires September 30th. This contract will be for 5 years. It does have an extension clause if it's agreed upon by both parties. There is a CPI component annually, but the contractor has to bring that forward to the City Council prior to any increase in the future. And Mr. Gresham is here from Waste Management. If you have any questions for him or me. Bill?
Hello, I'm Bill Gresham with Waste Management.
Alicia Cordell, Waste Management.
Alicia is our route supervisor for the residential routes in this area. Actually, 24 routes on
Any questions for Mr. Gresham?
I have one question. We had discussed having carts provided. Now, that's not included in this price, so that's not going to be in the contract.
No.
Okay, so the cart services are just,
Do we have a motion to authorize the awarding of this RFP? Second?
Second.
Comments from? Anything else from council?
You guys are doing a great job.
There's somebody behind you. Mr. Gresham?
Hi, good evening. My name is Tracy Leanne. I work with Waste Pro. We're at 5170 126th Avenue in Clearwater. And myself and my colleagues are here this evening. First of all, I just like to say that we appreciated the opportunity to bid on the services for Belleair Beach. We respect and understand that the city has a fantastic working relationship with your current provider, Waste Management. And as we go through each of our bids and our footprints, we realize that values placed on current relationship and respect and trust that the integrity of the bid process will hopefully allow for an open-minded review. All three of the proposals that you received were from great companies with proven leadership, vast experience, and significant capability to handle your city's solid waste and recycling needs. But after reviewing the bid tabulation and scoring sheets provided in the agenda packet, I have a couple of things I'd like to address with the council this evening. First, I realize that price was not the deciding factor, but questioned the scoring component with regards to Waste Pro. My company's total bid price was $250,510.16. That was the lowest amount, yet we were given the lower score compared to our competitor Waste Connections with the total bid price of $252,019.68. When you look at the overall scoring for the completeness, accuracy, and presentation, Waste Pro ranked out front of the other two submissions. If our presentation was complete and accurate, I question how we scored significantly less than the other two submissions on experience, which was section number 3. As my colleague that is present tonight, Keith Benesiak, can attest to the fact that we have significant experience that will allow for us to fully be able to service your city's contracts. Thirdly, here tonight, I listened to you all speak quite a bit about different competitive quotes and bids and how you valued looking at pricing and looked for significant savings for your residents. So, if I'm able to provide you a superior service at a competitive great rate with a significant savings of about $33,000 a year to your residents. Wouldn't that be something to consider? We're a company built on the idea of hiring great people, providing the right equipment, and then that in turn lending itself to providing a superior service. I do believe that our company is the distinguishable difference in the waste industry and would love the opportunity to begin a new relationship with your city. Thank you again for the opportunity, your time, and consideration.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members, and staff. My name is Keith Benasiak. I'm the Regional Vice President for Waste Pro Florida. I'm a Fort Myers resident, but my territory covers from South Florida on the West Coast all the way up through Citrus County. I want to echo what Tracy's comments were. When I was able to look at the evaluation criteria and really look through it, I immediately picked up the phone and asked her. I just didn't understand it. It just didn't make logical sense to me. This is nothing to do with the current provider or anything like that. I think it's just the way the evaluation was handled and the marks that we were given, or the lack thereof. No matter if you're a small city, a big city, a single residential customer, you're all important to me. I made the drive up from Fort Myers to prove that I think the city is important to Waste Pro, just as any other city is, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Well, I would just pass on, based on the three persons that evaluated this were Melanie, Kyle, and myself. Each of us had different evaluations. I can tell you from mine specifically that having the relevant experience, the recycling capability, I gave Waste Management high marks in that. The service that they provided was a long time. Waste Connections, I can tell you that the recycling and RFP, they scored lower than Waste Management did in that area, but they scored higher in the financial price because of the pricing. And they work in beach communities currently there. And I brought all that up at the work session. I also brought up at the work session, we discussed the card issue at the work session. Opted not to do that because most of the riders, if they had cards, were telling us 96-gallon cards. In looking at Waste Pro, I looked at their relevant experience in this area. I'm talking locally. I called some of their current people that they provide service to that were in their thing. And for the most part in Pinellas County, I found that they were more focused on recycling in Pinellas County. They do unincorporated, what I was led to understand is they do unincorporated pickup for individual homes. So with their heavy focus on recycling in the local area, I gave them lower numbers in relative experience in this local area. They did get the same number 7 in the proposal. They did get the higher number for cost, but where I felt the difference was the what they're doing locally within Pinellas County. So, and then I looked at Waste Management, as I said, all, kind of varied. Melanie rated Waste Connections higher, Waste Management was second, Waste Pro was the lowest. In mine, again, Waste Management for me was highest by 1/10 of a point over Waste Connections. Waste Pro was the lowest. And in Kyle's evaluation, Waste Management was the highest, Waste Pro was second, and Waste Connections was third. And then I assembled all those numbers together to give you the ranking that you have with the outline. So that's how we determined it, based on those things. If you have any other questions for me, I'll be happy to answer.
And I think one of the considerations is the size of the company and what they're doing in the recycling area today. And as far as I know, Waste Management has a better handling system nationwide with recycling than the other two companies, which is an important factor.
I think just to recap on that is that, you know, I surveyed some of my neighbors just to say, hey, if you're paying more to keep Waste Management, would you be comfortable with that? And it's the known versus the unknown. They were very pleased. It wasn't a huge amount of money when you look at the individual homes, and they were satisfied with the service we're getting from Waste Management. It's impeccable. We have never have an issue with what's being picked up at the curb, and it's hard to know what a new provider would give us for that. And that was the hard part for us when we're looking at it, is going, you know, how do we give a new company a chance? It's hard to when you have residents that are willing to pay more for the known. They know what kind of service they're getting from Waste Management.
And then we are satisfied with the service that they're getting from us. Yes, it's not the road.
Yeah, and just to clarify, in the RFQ, it did say lowest price is not necessarily the guarantee. It did say it's based on the consuls determines who can best meet what the council feel the needs are. That's what it said in the RFQ.
Any other? Okay, we have a motion to authorize the award of this RFP. The second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you. Item 16.
And this is for Melanie.
Monthly financial.
Monthly financial. And we did some more tweaking on it.
This is the financial statement for the month of July. Puts us 10 months in, which is about 83% of the full budget. And if you look on page 4 of your package, specifically there at the bottom where I outlined the designated funds, Jody had asked to have a listing of what everything is. So what I did was I put what each one of those designations was for. And most of those, as you can see, are just an accumulation fund that we roll over every year until we're ready to purchase, other than the hurricane and prepaids. If you go to page 5, you're going to see all the different funds laid out. And again, you can see that the general fund is only at 67% instead of 83%, and that is directly as a result of the two bottom numbers there. The contribution from the Marina Fund, which just happened, so that's at 100% in the next report that you'll get. And then the appropriation from fund balance, that doesn't happen until the end of the year. Basically, whatever the net difference is at the end of the year, whatever our shortfall is what we utilize. We won't utilize that entire amount unless we've spent all that, and so far we have not. So, which is good, because that means that the difference is going to roll back into undesignated fund balance, which will allow us to use that for other projects. In the Marina Fund, similar situation. The revenues are in real good shape, but as you can see, the expenditures are only at 11%, and again, those are all year-end and rollover items. Last time, when we asked about why none of the capital improvement in the marina had been done. It's because the city manager is looking to carry those items over and do those in future years when we have a larger project and then the city council has a better idea of what they envision for doing there in the marina. And then the capital projects fund is at 59%. And when you look at grants, it's only at 26%, but we received a check for $367,000 last week, so that's going to bring that number way up. And then the transfers from the general fund, that will be at 100% by year end as well. But we're also going to be doing a resolution to do a budget amendment for the undergrounding for the portion that's already begun this year. As you can see from the budget that you just adopted on the first go-around, there was $1.4 million in there for the upcoming budget, but we're going to be doing a resolution to add in, because what did we get, $283,000?
$281,000.
And then another addition to the package, again, it requests the council to have a better understanding of capital, where it's at, what the funding is, and what the status of it is. That's page 6. And basically I've outlined all projects that are happening in the Capital Projects Fund. The first column is any monies that are left over from prior years that are being rolled over. And then you've got anything that we have paid year to date for those projects, the current year budget, less any outstanding POs. There have been some budget transfers where we've needed more money, for instance, in seawalls, and we've come in under budget in public works for, say, the building. That money's been moved to accommodate projects that were over. And so that gives you the total amount left to spend is that green column. And then the 2 columns to the right give you your funding source and the status of the project. Any questions?
Very nice. I do have one question. On page 4, we have the Hurricane Emergency Reserve of $840,000. Do you feel that's a sufficient reserve, considering the impact storm we had?
Well, I would like to see, if you're asking finance, each year when there's a surplus, if there is a surplus, it would be nice to see some of that designated to add to the hurricane fund. We haven't done this in the past because of constantly changing the capital projects. And now we've got another big one in undergrounding. So again, that's something that the council needs to consider when we close this fiscal year and we know exactly where we are as far as any addition or subtraction from undesignated fund balance. I would be more than happy to bring you that change and suggest an increase.
How would you like to see as a reserve?
What would I like to see? That's hard to say. Originally, that account was $1 million, and when this building was being constructed, money was transferred from that fund for change orders on the construction of this building. So at the very least, I would like to see it brought back up to full $1 million. And then, you need to consider from there, what did we end up with, $120,000 in expenses from Irma?
Yes.
And that was mild. Our insurance does cover a lot of things, so that's just something. I don't know if you want to talk to, I know you've spoken with city managers, mayors down in Sandville Island when they got hit, what kind of expenses might be incurred in a full-blown hit. That was something.
Are they worth another short workshop to
I think if we get it back to $1 million, I think we as a city, with the insurance we have and other things, I think we'll be fine with that.
Of the 120 that Irma cost us, how much of that was reimbursed by?
We haven't got it, we've got like 5,000 of it back or something, but
We got 34,000, but didn't we just get another notice saying that we were getting 45?
Yes, so we'll probably get somewhere around $90,000 in the end. They're very, it's a very slow process to get your money back, I think.
But the reimbursement's there, so that's.
Yeah, we got,
And it typically, depending on what the
what the damage is.
You know, whether it's debris removal or other things, it ranges, what, between 70 and 90% reimbursement?
Some are 100%, but most of it is in the 70 to 90 range. And I can say that all of our stuff is at the state right now, because they're the last processor. The FEMA program manager we had, unfortunately, she has left the area, but she was great to work with, and she really helped us along the way. And the process was kind of cumbersome, but in the end, it all worked out. And you got to figure it's been 12 months, and at least we started getting some of the money back. It'll be 12 months, let's see, in 5 days. So.
And then another question, you had mentioned that there was a $367,000 check for grants. What was that?
That's for the Gulf Boulevard beautification reimbursement. That was specifically for the undergrounding of the wires on Gulf Boulevard that was started.
I'd very much like the discussion done on the reports, and this last one on page 6 is very interesting and helpful.
And we are still refining it, but I felt like we had to come up with a little different scenario. I have to thank Melanie for working with that. I probably gave her about 50 headaches, but.
Love itself.
Okay. Anything else for Officer?
Got a few. One for Melanie. First of all, I'll add on that page 6 is excellent, great work. Looking at the general fund expenditures, non-departmental, legal is rolled into that.
That's correct.
Right, non-departmental. In the interest of transparency, what I would like to see is break legal out of that. We've got all the other different cost centers essentially because they're departmental, but I think that's a key process for the city, and I just kind of like to give it some more visibility and transparency.
Right now, legal is at 77%, so it's actually, as of July, it's below the 83% as anticipated. It's we're currently expended $22,080 for legal and non-departmental.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Added as a line.
Yeah, what I'm saying is just add it as a line item, a distinct line item, along with all the other cost centers, just for visibility purposes.
I will tell you, so you're all aware of this up front, with the code review and things of that nature, the legal expenses are going to be a little higher, but we should be able to take care of that in the budget, for the funds that are available. So it's not like we're going to come back to you and ask you for an increase, but that should be expected.
I appreciate that, and again, it's just visibility and transparency is all. Makes sense. The second one is for the city manager, and that has to do with capital projects. It's it's great you're spelling out all the stuff for the capital projects. What I will ask is, we just recently approved the flooding contract. And again, grants can't look backwards, but because of the situation, we move forward with it. Are we spooling up the other capital projects for grants now so that we don't get the same position where, well, we've already committed the money and no going back now?
Well, we will do that where we can get grant opportunities. I will tell you that we did meet, and that was going to be in my council comments. I did meet with Swift Mud, even when we were proposing Unfortunately, because we are a local system, they are not willing to fund anything of that nature. Now, I did get something today that I'll look further in. I haven't had a chance to look at it because it came out at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Possibly it was for flood mitigation, and we'll see where that's at. But SwiftBud came back to us and told us that because it's not a regional system, they had no interest. They suggested I go to possibly a swim project. Well, I'm very familiar with swim, and we don't have any environmental lands that swim would qualify for. So I don't even know why the guy said that to me, because that's what it's surface water management program that is typically used in estuaries and preserves and things of that nature. I'm very familiar with it because I used it where I previously worked and got a lot of money out of it, but we don't have that capability. So we will look at this flood mitigation. It's part of FEMA's program, and we'll see if we can qualify for that. But we have not stopped looking for.
Thanks. Thanks for looking, appreciate it.
All right, Lynn, what about us being connected with the county as far as that?
They didn't consider that as, they considered us as local. I mean, Larry and I spent, I think it was about an hour and a half with them here. They came, 3 people from SwiftBud, took our stormwater master plan back with them and spoke to their program manager. And basically, what they said in the email, and I would forward that to all the council members. You could put in for it, but you're not going to score, so.
Not even our beautiful little pond over there with the birds walking around?
Well, that's Pinellas County. That's not our pond. And that's Gulf Boulevard. I was trying to get them to fund things for under the flooding protocol, but because we don't have those regional, what they consider regional systems, they're basically don't. You won't qualify. Okay.
Any other? Okay. Thank you, Melanie.
And then the last. Okay. I gave everyone a copy of the Woods Consulting proposal for the marina for you to look at. We'll discuss that a little later at another meeting. But that's just to give you an idea of what it potentially could cost us by phases. The first phase that they proposed would be about $4,500, and then it just continues to increase. So this was a company that did that conceptual design 15 years ago. So I went to them and asked them for the proposal. I do want to ask the resident survey, the feedback we got back, what the city council wants to do with any of that feedback, just in general. The driveway's been poured at the Public Works building. Belle Isle and First Street projects, we've got the contracts, actually everything signed today. So I will be getting with the contractors and we'll get those projects started this month. I told you about SwiftBud. Just so the residents know, there was a couple signs up on 22nd Street last week that said something to the effect to not swim in this water, drink this water, fish in this water, and I forget what the fourth one was. And what it was, there was a spill into the intercoastal sewage, and they took testing, and that's why those signs were up. They're gone now. So the people in island out there that went by those signs, there were a few people that called thinking they couldn't drink their water. But what they were talking about is you couldn't drink the water in the intercoastal, which we probably wouldn't do that anyway. They didn't tell me, they just called me and told me what happened. Because I called them, because the sign was a little kind of misleading, but it was a sewage spill from somewhere on 18th Street that was counting for. So.
Did we find out just where on 18th Street?
Yeah, she didn't give me that. This was from the environmental people that I talked to. So I will get some more information for you on that.
Maybe there's something leaking on the end of 18th Street.
I know where you're going, Mr. Mayor. Okay, also I gave you a copy of the code enforcement report for last month with the case notes in action. Laura's been very busy, and we continue to, if you have any questions on that, feel free to email me later or something. And I want to let you know about Red Tide, because I'm sure you've all heard about it. As of yesterday, they haven't done any water testing in our area, but there's none present in Indian Rocks Beach, so they haven't come north. We have entered into an agreement that will give them access through Morgan Park to, if we have a fish kill or something, we'll work with the county. There is some emergency management money available if we have to do that. We're going to keep our fingers crossed because the medium to high ranges are still down, or the medium ranges, there's nothing high, is still down towards the pier at Fort DeSoto. So far, so good. They're continuing to do testing, and we've had a weekly phone call to discuss that. So I think that's a positive thing. Unless you have any other questions for me, I think that's everything.
Thank you. Item 18, consideration of appointments to the City of Bel Air Beach Board of Adjustments.
Madam Mayor, just for the record, this is a tabled item, so you'll vote to bring it off the table and then proceed. If you want to amend it, then someone can make a motion to amend this current list and add names or take away names or what have you. But let's get it off the table for record.
So we have to have a motion to untable it.
Bring it off the table. Yes, ma'am.
We have a
And
motion.
then you can deal with the item itself.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion to untable this.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. As you see in the backup, there are 4 people who have applied for the Board of Adjustment. There are 5 spots open for different lengths of time. And Jody wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, I was just a little concerned because I know when we decided that we would do the code review, we had 2 members on the Board of Adjustments, Mike Kelly and Carol Conrad. And we asked them both to join the code review, and then we would put their positions on hold on the Board of Adjustments. And there was a lot of discussion back and forth about that. And then now we're considering 4 applications, and their names are not in these 4 applications. And I'm a little confused why they're not being considered again.
Just to clarify that, when the agenda was sent out, they weren't eligible to be put on it.
Okay, so
Now-
let me do this. Let me just move to amend this agenda item to include Mike Kelly and Carol Conrad.
Okay. Patty, if that's what's supported, Patty does have copies of their applications. to hand out.
Can I get a second?
Amended to add the 2? Second?
You made the motion? I'll second.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have those 2, but 3 were submitted and being held from the code review committee. So I don't know if you want to include all 3 or just the 2 that you spoke about.
Who's the third?
No, Patty, you can't. She made a motion to include 2 by name specific. Ms. Scherer has seconded that motion. Now it's ready for consideration on a motion to amend the list or the tabled item.
When would those positions be effective?
I'm sorry, what?
When would these positions be filled?
Tonight.
Immediately?
It's not possible. You cannot sit on the Board of Adjustment and sit on the
There-
standing committee.
The committee's
Many
over.
committees already, last time was the last meeting.
And you're never going to have another assembly of that ad hoc committee?
Yesterday, Mr. Kelly resigned officially and formally off of the Code Review Committee.
Did Carol?
I don't know. I just know that he turned in a resignation letter to both the city clerk and the city manager.
After the meeting last night, he turned it
And then I think we were all dismissed after the meeting, not at the end of the meeting. That was the last meeting, correct?
Yeah, I did dismiss the committee.
The committee's been dismissed, okay. And the other applications were submitted before, was there a deadline for the application process?
So right now, we've got a motion to add these 2 people, but there's a third application in existence. So do you want to amend your motion to add the 2 people to add 3 people?
I think we should do that.
Yes.
Fair enough for the people.
Yes. Yes, I think we amend this to add Mike Kelly, Carol Conroy, and Michael.
Does the second agree?
Second for that?
Yes. I agree to the friendly amendment.
Okay, all right.
That's not what you said whenever you were.
Excuse me, sir, can I come up here? Give me your name and address.
My name is Dave Gass. I live at 309 22nd Street. Whenever you guys were voting people in for the ad hoc committee, it was plainly stated, first off, you said anyone who has ever been on the Board of Adjustments was not eligible. That is what you ran on the website. We printed it out. We saw it. Whenever it came up, Mike jumped up and he said, I want to be on that. A lot of people were unhappy with that, and even your own attorney said you're not eligible, at least for 120 days. Now you're saying, no, you can get right in. So you're allowing the person who steered this committee to go and reinforce those rules. Absolutely not. This is just completely, just way out of left field, very disappointing dog. That's all I've got to say.
I've got 2 items. One is, were those applications submitted before a deadline for the application process?
They were submitted, let's put it this way, the dates of their applications, they resubmitted them after they were appointed to the Code Review Committee, and they were not eligible, and that's why they were not put on this agenda.
They are no longer on the, since the Code Review Committee does not exist anymore, they are now eligible. Is that?
What was that 120 days?
The rule is just a simple rule. The rule says you can't serve on more than one committee.
My name's Steve Swope. I live at 121 8th Street. Last month, this thing was tabled by Councilman Bain, mainly because of cronyism. He wants his people, you all want your people on there. A lot of you are in my house running for election, and you all ran about change. Councilwoman Shirley, 2 months ago, scolded Barb over there and said, I think it's all about we want people with experience. So I ask you, Councilwoman Shirley, have you ever ran or been on the city council before you got elected to this position?
As a point of protocol, sir, you really need to address either the mayor or the entire council.
Okay, my point exactly. Not all of you were on the city council before you got elected. So why, I said not all, I didn't say everything. So why is it that we have to continue to bring the same people to the same committees over and over again? It's not right, it's not fair, it's cronyism. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that also, and I view this as a conflict. A person came off the Board of Adjustment to sit on the code enforcement, and I supported it because of his experience and his background. Now to turn around and go right back to the same thing, I see the same thing, same old people, same old ideas, and I came to this council for fresh blood, new ideas, and a new perspective. So that's all I'm going to say is.
Mr. Swope, could you come up to the podium, please?
I apologize for my outburst.
Don't ever talk to me like that again.
Don't ever talk to me that way again.
All right, let's first calm down. Years ago, before I was on any of these committees, I mean, going back when I first moved here, I sat in on the committees to see what they were all about and how they run.
Okay.
How many meetings have you been in with the variance committee? How do you know how it works?
I'm not right. I didn't apply
Okay,
for
but
that.
I'm just addressing you.
Okay.
I think the smart thing for anybody to do, if they want to get on the committees or participate, and I mentioned this in the last council meeting, is take the time. You can participate in those meetings. You do not have to be a member. Your voice is always heard. Even though I wasn't on a committee for years, my voice was heard. They listened. Mike Kelly listened. All the other people listened. There's no reason why anybody can't get involved in a committee and just come to the meeting. For years, when Mike, myself, and other people that have been around for a long time, you couldn't get enough people. It's just since we've been elected that everybody's been attending these meetings. We love it, but the attitude has got to stop. Nobody comes here for free.
I think everybody comes here.
Oh, we're okay.
I don't think any of you are
not getting paid.
I don't think any of the residents get paid for
volunteering. But for years, we couldn't get anybody like yourself even to come up and voice an opinion, so I appreciate that. But there's no cronyism going on here, believe me. It's not that I've known him for years. I respect his knowledge, his ability to hold a meeting. He controls it well. I know this because I was on that meeting with him. And I was on those committees.
Okay, so let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
You don't think it's a conflict?
No.
As Councilman Gunn just stated,
No, I
that
don't think it's a
you
conflict.
let him come up here and resign from one committee to go to a different committee. I don't even know Mike Kelly, so I'm sure he's a great guy. And then to resign from that committee to jump back on this one after you tabled it the month before. I mean, it just doesn't sound right. I'm sorry, it doesn't make
It doesn't sound right, but let the person fulfill his obligation that he had. The city needed.
He resigned.
They needed the experience. That's why he was asked to resign. He should be able to fill the term that he applied for, out of respect. If the city needed that experience and used that experience, what is wrong with that?
Yeah, but watching the meetings, and unfortunately I work except for on Wednesdays, all right? Watching the meetings, you requested for 2 members to resign in order to go to that other meeting in lieu of other people that had volunteered. Now, you're letting those same people resign that committee to get on this one after it was tabled a month ago.
They didn't resign from that committee.
They just said he resigned.
He did for.
And he fought, and your own attorney endorsed him 2 months ago, over and over again, on that thing, how much he loved him and wanted him to be a part of it and everything. I mean, this is really ridiculous. Look at the website, watch the video.
I have a lot of respect for
I do too. I know he served this community for a long time and recently came back, and that's not the point.
When he wasn't even in this community, he came back to help us because of our problem.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
My turn.
Yes, sir.
Mike Kelly, 2740 Hibiscus. I had to resign because the city attorney in this public forum said, you must resign, period. Can't serve on 2 committees at one time. He read it out of the ordinance. I stood here and said, I'll take a leave of absence till you read that we must resign. Carol resigned, I resigned, so did Michael. It had nothing to do with cronyism, it had everything to do with the service. If this was going to be such an issue, I should have been an advisor to this committee, not a voting member, and it really didn't make a difference. We said we would serve during the course of this ad hoc committee, which we've done. We were released last night. We didn't know we were going to be released last night. I resigned yesterday so that my name would be considered tonight. There's nothing to do with cronyism. I have the floor, sir. And I hope that the people involved, and if this thing goes forward, that you'll consider the fact that you have a board of adjustment that, to my knowledge, hasn't met or had to adjudicate in 3 or 4 years. And you're trying to fill it in, and I wish to be on that new board. Thank you.
Mayor, you're going to back into this thing now. You got the table item, and you've got the amendment to the table item. So take it from the amendment, vote that, and then go to the table item if the amendment passes with the additions.
Did we? I thought we amended it to put the 3 additional people on the list.
I didn't hear a vote. I heard a motion and second. I didn't hear a vote to amend the table item to include 3 additional persons. Once you do that, Mayor, then you can proceed forward with the totality of what's left.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the tabled item to add the 3 additional candidates. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Okay.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, no? Okay.
I
Passes.
oppose.
Pardon?
I oppose.
Okay. 4-2. Passes.
Are we still in the discussion phase for voting on this?
Yes.
Because I do have some more comments.
For amending the,
No,
adding
just,
the 3 people or who we're appointing?
well, yes. Whichever way we want to do it.
Patty, you want to pass out the applications?
You have the other resumes or the other applications?
The 3.
3.
Great.
So before we vote on this, there's still more discussion? Is now the time, or?
She's going to pass out the additional.
The additional applications. And then we, we have 7 applicants for 5 positions. Three here. Kelly. And
Mayor, how many positions do you have to fill on the board?
there are 5.
All
3.
5?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, since all of the positions are, shall I say, different, there's someone for a 3-year term, someone to fill a term until July 31st, 2019, someone to fill a term till August 6, 2020, and 2 alternate vacancies. So we need to put the applicants in these various positions. Do I have someone to appoint to the board member for the 3-year term? Do I have a motion to put someone on for the 3-year term?
I would move Kelly Harper, Henry for the 3-year term.
I'm sorry, Mike?
Kelly Henry.
Oh, Kelly Henry. Okay, is there a second for Kelly Henry for the 3-year term? Okay, is there another motion for the 3-year term? Or someone else?
I would motion to appoint Michael Harper.
I'll second that one.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to appoint Michael Harper for a 3-year term. Is Mr. Harper here? Yes, sir. Did you want to say anything?
Michael Harper, 111 16th Street. I've been a resident of Bel Air Beach for going on 3 years, and I am more than willing to help the community in any way that I can. So with that, I just completed the term on the ad hoc advisory committee, so I have a good understanding of the Robert's Rules of Order and the mechanisms of the city's voting process. So I appreciate your support and would gladly take what the city thinks is best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Michael Harper as a board member for a 3-year term. Do you want to take a roll on this, Patty? Want to do a roll? Pardon?
Up to you, Mayor. Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Please refresh my memory on what the motion is before the vote.
The motion is to appoint Michael Harper as the board member for a 3-year term.
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilwoman Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Harper. Okay. Our next one is to appoint a board member to fulfill a term until July 31st, 2019. Do I have a motion to appoint someone for this term till July 31st, 2019?
Mayor, could I ask you whose turn that was, please?
I don't know. Yeah, did you know whose terms these were, the 2019, the 2020?
I don't have that right here now.
Mr. Kelly, do you remember which?
Mine was 220,
2020?
2020.
That was yours, okay. So do we?
I would like to make a motion to have Mike Kelly fill his term.
That would be the August 6, 2020?
Correct.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
With all due respect to Mr. Kelly's expertise and the value he's brought to the ad hoc committees and the previous boards of adjustment, it's time for some fresh blood, and I'll tell you, this stinks. And it really does stink of cronyism. It's gone back and forth. Same people coming through the doors. And yes, I have viewed videos of prior boards of adjustment and seen some of those interactions with the people on the board. I also think it's a conflict when a person doing business in this community sits on the board of adjustment. That is a huge conflict. And that's all I'm going to say in this matter. Thank you.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second to appoint Mike Kelly? Okay, a second. Any more discussion on Kelly for the August 6, 2020 term?
I would nominate Mr. Henry for the same term.
Space Henry.
Missing.
I'm sorry, you're nominating
Kelly Henry.
for which term? Well, we have a motion and a second to nominate Mike Kelly. We can vote on that, and if it doesn't go through, then we can nominate somebody
Okay, so
else.
the motion before the floor is to vote on his nomination. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Understood.
Okay, Mike Kelly for the 2020 term.
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
No.
Councilmember Petrowski,
No.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Aye. 4-2. Mike Kelly is the board member to fulfill the term until August 6, 2020.
I think the motion was to just nominate him, right? Not to fill the position?
To appoint him.
To appoint him to the Board of Adjustment for the term ending August 6, 2020.
Yes. Okay, then we
Is
have,
that the city clerk?
pardon?
I thought I asked for the clarification of the motion before the floor, and
It was to appoint him
to nominate him,
to fulfill a term.
to nominate him.
Okay.
Were there any other nominations? I tried to nominate
We
Mr.
had a first
Henry.
and a second, and then there was a motion outstanding that had been made and seconded, and before we go on to something else, we have to vote on that motion.
Okay,
Okay.
we can have a motion to reconsider, is that correct?
Yep,
Councilman?
technically,
Yes.
if you're on the prevailing side.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
I don't think you're on the
Reconsider.
prevailing side.
Reconsider and open the nominations to Mr. Henry as well.
Aren't there 3 other positions here that you're dealing with?
Yeah, there's another board member position through July 31st, 2019, and then there are 2 alternate board members.
Is there anything wrong with 2 people being nominated to fill the same position?
No, you could have done that by a ballot vote if you wanted to, if we would have let that go through, but the chair decided to go forward with the nomination on the floor first, and vote that one out. It sort of speaks for itself in a way. If you have a candidate, Mr. Glenn, for one of these positions, now's your time.
We have the board member to appoint to fulfill a term until July 31st, 2019. Any nominations for that appointment?
Kelly Henry.
Secondly.
Kelly Henry? Okay. Discussion?
Is Kelly here?
Pardon? All right. Kelly Henry is, there's a motion and a second to appoint Kelly Henry for the term to end July 31st, 2019. Patty?
Councilmember Bean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Vote 6-0. Kelly Henry is appointed to July 31st, 2019. I've got 2 alternate board members for a
Can we
3-year.
nominate 2 at a time?
Pardon?
Can we nominate 2 at a time?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to nominate Carol Conry and Fred Elia.
Okay.
Secondly.
Pardon? Was that a second? Carol Conry and Fred Elia?
I'm sorry, what was the, who's?
Carol Conry and Fred Elia. Okay. Either of them here? No? Okay. We got a motion and a second. Patty?
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Gunn,
Aye.
Councilmember Petrowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Schwer,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Mayor Notaro.
Aye. Okay, 6-0. All right. We now have a full Board of Adjustment. First time in a long time. This is good. Thank you all for volunteering. Item 19, consideration of selecting a council member as an alternate voting delegate for the Barrier Islands Government Council, the Big C. I am currently the president of the Big C, and I believe our former vice mayor was the alternate delegate. So do we have anyone who would like to volunteer as the alternate voting delegate for the Big C? I figured Wanda. Anyone else want to volunteer?
Nobody's supposed to get up that early. Let's see more. I failed to make it last time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, do we need to vote on that? All in favor of, do I have a motion for Wanda to be the alternate?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Item 20, consideration of appointment of board director to the Suncoast League of Cities. I have been a representative to that until recently, but I'm more than willing to resume that position.
I'm Mayor Notaro.
I second.
Any other volunteers? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, unfinished business. Discussion and recap of the City Council August work session on best practices.
This was asked to be put on by Councilmember Gunn.
Okay.
I'll recap. Best practices work session, August of 20. This is a follow-up and a recap. Based on an agenda item I submitted. The goals of the work session were essentially to brainstorm possible opportunities for improvement or change, categorize as either a quick hitter, which is something easy to implement, versus a long-term project which would require analysis and detailed planning, and then assign some action items. During the session, there was a discussion and a consensus that not all best practices are the right fit for every situation or for Bel Air Beach. It was also recognized that often best practices also fail because of adversity to change or quality of management implementation. Several issues were identified and categorized, but by the end of the meeting there was no definitive action items assigned. I would like to close the loop on some of those quick hitter issues now. There was a consensus that the protocol of the August council session broke down in several areas. A, there was some confusion removing consent agenda items at the same time as amending the regular agenda items. There were citizen comments over 3 minutes and comments from the audience instead of the podium. A little discussion here. The use of the consent agenda is a recently added best practice that we've adopted here in Bel Air Beach, and it's good, but it may have caused some of the confusion that we encountered at the last council session. The issue was also raised that often motions move to a vote without a call for discussion or comments from the public. I'm glad to see that we're starting to take a more proactive look at protocol and parliamentary procedure and making sure that the inputs from the public are queried. At this time, I'd like to move that the council schedule a work session to review parliamentary procedure to assure a common understanding of procedure and protocol. And I think probably our city attorney could put together something in short order.
The city attorney has already put something together, and Jackie Birchburg will be presenting that to you and making it available to you. It's fairly basic. It's a good little presentation, and I think you'll be satisfied if you make this presentation anytime between now and the middle of October.
So I guess all we need to do is put it on the schedule and the agenda. Is that what we're looking for?
We got a couple meetings coming up. We got the second budget hearing and that stuff. Then we've got something on the code review committee, so yeah, we're getting booked.
So how long a presentation are we talking?
How long is this presentation?
It shouldn't be too long. I can't speak for the way she would present it compared to the way I would present it, but
Half hour, 2 days?
I think, thank you. I think a half an hour might be able to do it. What she's going to do probably is we'll make available printouts of this outline, parliamentary outline, and make that available to you. And, you know, you can read it. It's not that difficult.
Okay. Quick hitter number 1. That's it.
Or we could potentially meet like a half hour before our next meeting or something, and should we do it then?
Well, if you want to do it then, or a special workshop, whichever way you want to do
Rather
it.
than booking, I mean, if it's that short of a presentation.
Well,
It would be nice to be able to ask questions and follow them up on any.
We're going to work on a date for the code review committee and this, and we'll send out, Patty will send out, here are a whole bunch of dates, pick some.
Okay, item number 1, city clerk. The consensus was at the working session that when recognized by the mayor, the existing 3-minute limit on citizen comments is appropriate, except for designated representative comments as allowed by the city ordinances, right?
12 minutes.
Right. There was discussion about situational discretionary interaction with the resident making citizens' comments, basically to acknowledge the comments and possibly provide some feedback on the spot. The use of a timer by other councils has been observed, and I'll pass down a photograph from Dunedin. The use of the timer by other councils has been observed. The digital timer counts down from 3 minutes with a green light. 30 seconds remaining, the light turns yellow, and then the red light when no time remains. Works great. I didn't see any infractions there, and
That's an investment. Patty has her cell phone.
best practices. What I saw was when that digital clock is sitting right in front of the citizen, trust me, the yellow light comes on, they finish up their comments, and there's none, hey, your time's up, which starts to get into an adversarial role. I think we're looking for a positive interaction with the residents. We've been trying to push that all along, and this just kind of fosters that sort of thing. So at this point, I move that Bel Air Beach purchase and institute the use of a digital timer for citizens' comments.
I just gave it to Lynn to get a price.
Okay, so there's no second, so
Oh, no, I would agree with you. I think we do need a digital timer.
Yeah, but I think it's, so I say premature to move to buy one, you know, if it's.
Well, let's look and see what they cost.
Yeah.
A friendly amendment, maybe to research the price and availability and implementation of such a timer.
I'll buy that.
Okay. All right.
Discussion? Any further discussion? Mayor?
Any second on that?
Second.
Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then they're shopping.
The second item, the city of Bel Air Beach conducted an email survey, as the city manager alluded to during his comments, via constant contact in July. The very first question on this survey asked for feedback on the best meeting time to encourage attendance. There were 99 responses. The stated times on the survey were 5:30, the current meeting time, with 22% positive responses. 6 p.m., 24% positive responses. 6:30, 23%. 7 p.m., 32%. While there's no clear-cut deciding time here, The takeaway is 79% said it's better to do it after 5:30. Discussion. Opinions range from previous observations of low attendance at later meetings, additional staff time versus comp time, cherry-picking survey responses, and the council session being a public hearing for the benefit of our residents. There was some discussion of comp time, and if you go back to the personnel manual for the city, the excluded personnel are the people who attend this meeting, the finance director, the city manager, and the city clerk. However, if you go to the next paragraph, which is flex time, it says that you can reschedule within a pay period and basically make up that time. And I think the city manager has been doing that all along. There are times when people need personal time to do things, and within your discretion, I'm thinking that people flex their time and make up whenever it's necessary or whatever. And I think that's a possibility with attending these meetings as well. Is that
Yeah, if they, any of the salaried people come to me and they've worked over and they ask to, I don't know, you know, they need to go do something or go to their home because a contractor's coming. Yeah,
I understand, and I think everybody recognizes it. So I would also submit that we ask for feedback in a survey with the implied idea that we would use that feedback when we surveyed the residents. I surveyed the Florida League of Cities municipal directory, and of the 21 cities that I surveyed in our local neighboring area, only 2 held council meetings before 6 p.m. One was us, and the other was Indian Shores, I believe. Basically, of the 21 cities that I looked at, 2 held them before 6 p.m., but 12 of them held them at 6 p.m., 2 at 6:30, and 5 of them held them at 7 p.m. Once again, our survey results didn't yield a decisive time, but the takeaway is that 79% wanted later than 5:30. So, at this point, I move that Bel Air Beach City Council move the meeting time of its regular monthly sessions to 6 p.m.
That's going to have to be done by ordinance because it's codified at 5:30. Yeah, I looked it up today.
Yeah. Just 2 readings. We would have to do 2 readings of an ordinance at a regular meeting to change it.
So how should I amend the motion?
Yes, sir.
Amended that the city attorney be directed to write an ordinance changing the meeting time. Is that appropriate?
That's what we do. We've got the ordinance, it's just, the question is just changing
The time.
from your request to where you want. You want it 6? You want it 6?
Well, let's have a discussion here. I mean, I chose 6 because the vast majority of the cities are using 6. The majority of the responses were after 5:30, and I mean, there was 12 cities at 6, 2 at 6:30, and 5 at 7.
But it's already 8 o'clock when we started at 5:30. Yeah.
Dunedin runs till 11 p.m. Let's do the business of the city.
Okay, so we're going to direct, he will draw up an ordinance, and we can have this discussion at the next meeting.
Is there a consensus for 6? Because I can put it, it's going to be very simple. I'd have it done by tomorrow morning. But is there a consensus for 6? Or?
I vote for 5:30.
Well, I mean,
People may reach the count, but
So we've got an amended motion on the floor. Let's take a vote.
then take a vote if you want to change it from 5:30.
So the motion on the floor is to have the city attorney draft a resolution to change the council meeting time to 6 p.m. Is that correct?
It's an ordinance.
an ordinance, yeah.
Ordinance.
I second
For
it.
that?
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Take a vote. A roll
4-2.
call.
Okay.
Did you hear that? Were you able to hear that it's 4-2
Yeah.
in favor of?
Roll
Or
call.
two in favor of doing the ordinance.
Okay.
Third item, IT, interactive forms. Where applicable, in an effort to streamline paperwork for the staff as well as residents applying for positions, I would move that the city investigate the feasibility and cost of converting all forms and applications to an interactive format.
Fillable is what you're saying.
Yes, online. Instead of having to download, print it out, fill it out by hand, and then fax or take a picture and submit it.
We have a new website host, so we can talk to Digital Eel about doing that, right?
No, that wouldn't come from the website. Well, there's a software program that you can make a form. I forget what the name of it is.
There's Adobe.
It's Adobe.
Acrobat, Over, something like that.
Yeah, I know that it's a software program.
So is that an action item we have now?
We'll look into it.
We'll look into the cost and what it takes to do it.
Seating arrangement at the council dais. As I've observed at neighboring city council sessions that I've attended, the city manager and city attorney typically sit at the end of the dais or at a different desk so that they can see and address the entire council together. Nobody's got their back to the city attorney or to the city manager when they're trying to address the majority of council members. This kind of makes sense to me from a decorum standpoint and would also display a unified council. I'm not going to make a motion for this. I'll throw that out for consideration.
I don't remember that being discussed at the work session, was it?
No.
Okay, this is a recap of the work session.
But it's a good point, because I have my back to the attorney, Lynn has his back to me constantly in the meeting. It's very difficult, because he's talking to that end of the council.
Okay, next.
Ethics training on a recurring basis, annual or biennial. Not only are elected officials who are also received the Sunshine Law training, but I'm suggesting ethics training for all city staff and employees. Anyone in a position of trust who's entrusted to work with city funds, resources, or property also entails interaction with residents, vendors, contractors, and fellow employees. This not only baselines new personnel, but serves as a constant reminder. I move that the city develop and incorporate a recurring ethics training program for all city staff and employees.
Was that something that we discussed at that?
I believe we did.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody does get that. I mean, your clerk, annual clerk training, annual finance officer training, annual city manager.
Yeah,
Everybody does it.
the staff, the three that are here tonight get that ethics training. It's required. As is it required all the city council members to take it annually. And usually it's taught by, like, I think the last one was July, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's up in Dunedin.
Dunedin, the Suncoast League puts on an annual event, so we all have to do that already. It's required.
That's done.
And that includes all employees?
It doesn't include the groundspeople or anything like that, but they don't have that requirement in their position.
They're entrusted with city property and resources.
Well, if you're wanting me to give them a feedback ethics training, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. That would just be part of their monthly training, but realistically, that's typically not done in city government to that level of staff.
Right.
Typically, it's not done for that, but that's like, it's just not.
But to Glenn's point, it's a good reinforcement that, we're trained, I think an ethics class for everyone is appropriate.
That person out there cutting grass cares about ethics.
Well, I care if he has that.
I should.
The ethics issues they would deal with are different from the kinds of topics that are taught in the ethics classes that we attend.
Exactly.
Precisely.
They would have a totally different perspective.
I've seen it in world-class organizations that I've worked at, and hey, when you fill up a gas can and then take it home to fill up your mower or your car, that's where it does intersect ethics.
Or you find a resident's wallet on the street, you know, there's some.
Or just how you interact with your fellow employees, how you drive the city truck, whether you take that home or lunch or to run.
Well, I think you're getting into the city manager's purview in that. That is the city manager's responsibility. It's not the council's responsibility to direct training to the staff.
I'm raising it as a
But that's
best
not
Okay.
the
All
city
right.
council's doing.
Okay, let's move on to talking about the recap of the work session.
I put a motion before the council. I move that the city develop and incorporate a recurrent ethics training program for all city staff and employees.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second that.
Discussion?
I defer to the city managers.
Yes.
I defer to the city manager since that's part of his role and responsibility, and we are precluded from doing that.
Yes, I would agree totally that it's the city manager's responsibility.
He is the executive of the city. We are
And they report to him, not to us. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
No.
Yeah, no, aye. Okay, 3-3, motion fails.
The work session also touched on the issues of evaluations, council member orientation, recurrent training, grants, strategic planning, capital improvement planning. Most of these issues will be integrated into the long-term best practices of strategic planning, which happens to be the focus of the next scheduled work session. That's my item.
All right, thank you. Item 21, city council comments. John?
No further comment.
Jody?
Yeah, I just would like to thank everyone for attending tonight. I would appreciate that when you approach the podium that you would be respectful to council members, as we are all volunteers, and we in turn are very respectful for your time and allow you the opportunity to speak. It's not easy to be up here, and we're trying to make the right decisions for the city. And yes, many of us are green, but we're learning as we go, just as any on the boards would as well. So just, be considerate of those around you. Thank you.
Okay. Glenn?
I'm speechless.
Okay. Mark?
Okay, I want to bring one thing up that was a hot item tonight. And basically, it's best practices. And I'm going to use myself as an example. A number of years ago, we had a committee, and it was the Committee for Gulf Boulevard Beautification. And a few of us got together and we wanted to start the ad hoc committee for undergrounding. So here's was the deal at that time. Since I was on the Board of Adjustments, Mr. Marino said to me, he says, we want you on the Board of Adjustments, we do not want you off. And you will become an advisor to the ad hoc committee that was formed at that time. And I think what happened here is this is what should have been done last month or 3 months ago, is Mr. Kelly and the other two people that were removed or used for their experience and dedication to the city should have been used as advisors and not removed from the committee, and all of this disturbance would have been eliminated. So these are part of our best practices. I think we've learned something that caused a lot of distension in the community, and I'd like to make a motion that we change our procedures if we have these committees that we created since we've been elected, because it hadn't ever happened before that we've had this many committees and this much time spent from one month to another. That's what I'd like to change. Because I'm sorry, people, that this happened. It wasn't done intentionally. It sure looks bad on us, but there was no intention to do that. I hope you understand it. Do you have any comments? Please come up and let us know, or we know. If you agree with what I'm saying, maybe agree with me. Say something.
I agree.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Schwab. Appreciate it. That's all I had. Pardon?
I have nothing, but I want to thank Melanie for the hard work that she did on the budget and on the monthly financial. I think it's helping a lot.
Okay. I have no more comments. Motion to adjourn?
Let me just say, I just got finished doing your ordinance on the time change. It's going to be, I'm trying to send it to you right now, but I can't get a good signal on the Wi-Fi here. So you'll get it tomorrow morning. So we're killing two birds with one stone. So, Jackie will be here next month, and then I'll be back for regular sessions. But I'll be here through the 18th.
Motion to adjourn? So moved. Second. We're done.